You're watching the Intel Network and Edge V-Summit series with our focus today on Cloud Native NFV. How can Cloud Native help accelerate the NFV journey for communications service providers? What learnings can we take from NFV? And what more work is needed to fully realize the potential of Cloud Native? Well, joining me now to discuss how the industry can embrace the Cloud Native opportunity are Jeni Panhorst, VP Data Platforms Group and GM Network and Edge Platforms Division at Intel, and Rajesh Gadiyar, who is VP Data Platforms Group and CTO Network Platforms Group at Intel. Hello to both of you. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme.
Hey
Thanks
Guy,
for
how are
having
you?
us, Guy. It's great to be here.
Jeni, if I could start with you, and let's look at where we are with NFV. What is the current status of NFV within the industry, and are you satisfied with the progress that's been made? Has NFV delivered on its key tenets?
That's a really great set of questions, Guy. And I think that as we kind of consider where we're at with respect to the deployment of NFV, it's really important to look at the journey that we've gone on so far. Our journey with the communication service providers and the broader ecosystem that's responsible for driving solutions for NFV really began a decade ago. You can look at milestones like the publication of the NFV white paper within ETSI and the formation of some of the key tenets of virtualized and software-defined infrastructure is kind of a starting point for this move away from purpose-built infrastructure towards a much more virtualized and cloud-native and server-based infrastructure. And you can look at a couple other key milestones that have occurred over that time. One of the key enablers of being able to deliver NFV on server-based infrastructure was the creation of DPDK, or the Data Plane Development Kit, which now, after actually 10 years of development, actually DPDK turns 10 this year, believe it or not, has really become the de facto standard for software-based packet processing, which is really critical for fortifying that foundation that is now deploying in larger scale. And so, in the 2017 timeframe, we were able to acknowledge that scale by transferring the DPDK community into the Linux Foundation, further fortifying it as that key baseline for a lot of virtualized infrastructure. And just looking then at some of the results, that's just one example, of course, of an innovation, but just looking at some of the results that we see, on this chart here, you can see some of the data for the progress we've made and the forecast out in time of virtualized core networks. And what you can see is that this year in 2020, it's really the crossover from purpose-built solutions to virtualized solutions in the core network. And out in the 2023 timeframe, we expect that over 80% of revenue for shipments are going to be virtualized in the core network. And when you measure it based on number of sessions, it's actually more than 90% virtualized. So I think that core networks is really, probably one of the most significant examples of progress in NFV, but we see virtualized infrastructure rolling out throughout the network, whether it's virtualized BNG, virtualized provider edge routers, and even virtualized RAN deployments that carriers have announced in geographies all over the world.
And Jeni, Intel has really demonstrated thought leadership in transforming the network infrastructure and pioneered the NFV and SDN movement within telecoms. Can you tell us a little bit more about the approach you've taken?
Yeah, it's a multifaceted strategy that we've used to acknowledge the challenges that are faced in the market and to really partner deeply with customers to understand those challenges and then work together to build solutions. And so in terms of Intel's contribution to that strategy, first of all, it's really about fortifying the key capabilities of our silicon roadmap that form the foundation for the systems and solutions that comprise that virtualized infrastructure. And there's a number of things that we need to address. When you look at network infrastructure, that spans across telecom infrastructure and also networking within cloud and enterprise data centers. There's a wide variety of needs. There's a wide variety of design points of workloads that need to be addressed. And so one of the first steps that we had to drive, a decade plus ago, and have continued over time in terms of our investments in Intel's roadmap, is the convergence of multiple network workloads onto a single architecture and set of assets to make it easier for customers to leverage a strong ecosystem that exists around Intel architecture and the various other assets that are available in general purpose computing and server based infrastructure. But it's also, in addition to investing in those key ingredients, it's also about understanding and taking advantage of these key tenets of cloud computing, virtualized and cloudified infrastructure. That really was one of the primary asks of the communication service providers, the telecom providers, at the time of the advent and invention of NFV. It was, how can we take these cloud principles and apply them to the network and get those benefits of server-based scale and also the flexibility of virtualized infrastructure. So taking the advantage of virtualization, cloudification, orchestration, and automation, and applying those to network infrastructure. And of course, all of this is made possible with the collaboration that we have across the industry. I talked before about how we focus on really partnering with communication service providers, telecom operators, to deeply understand the challenges that they're facing and partner with them to co-architect solutions that address those challenges. But really, it is the partnerships across the entire value chain that make this possible. And that includes the telecom equipment manufacturers, the software vendors, the system integrators, and of course the operators themselves, who all play a role in ensuring that virtualized and now moving forward cloud native infrastructure solutions are equipped to deliver on these next generation demands.
Thank you, Jeni. Rajesh, if I could turn to you, what are some of the challenges that still need to be addressed in order for us to realize this fully automated, scalable and programmable network infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you, Guy. Actually, that's a great question. And in fact, I would like to actually point out three areas in particular where we could be, doing more as we enter into the next phase of network transformation. The three areas really are first, actually, further disaggregation and how do we drive hardware abstraction. Second is automation. So this was actually going to be a key tenet of what NFV was going to deliver. I think there is more work to be done. And especially taking a leaf out of what the cloud service providers have done, and can we actually apply some of the paradigm to drive more automation and continuous integration, continuous development paradigm for network infrastructure and network applications. And then the last one is, how do we provide an easy button approach for the developers? So as the new services emerge with 5G and edge services, it's really going to be important for us to provide for a hardened platform with an easy button set of APIs and infrastructure that allows for easy creation, deployment, and management of services. And so when I look at actually the next phase of transformation, and this is what we're going to be focused on with a cloud native transformation, we'll be actually looking at these three areas in particular, and how do we actually solve some of these problems with a cloud native approach.
Thank you, Rajesh. So Jeni, that brings us on to this next phase of network transformation, the cloud native transformation. Why cloud native? What are the customer demands and service opportunities that are really making cloud native approaches so attractive now or even necessary?
So if we look at some of the changes that the industry is facing right now, you see a significant upswing in telco cloud infrastructure, projected to be over a $22 billion market out by 2025. So you already see a tremendous amount of virtualized and cloudified infrastructure that's deploying. And what's interesting about the forecasts from analysts and some of the data that you see on this page is that while virtualized network functions, VNFs, are forecasted to grow at a pretty impressive clip, a 30% CAGR over that horizon, containerized network functions, containerized implementations are growing almost as fast. So what we see is that while we've had several years of progress to be able to achieve where we are right now with virtualization of the network, the level of growth of container-based networking is also increasing pretty significantly. And what it also tells us is that there will be a heterogeneous set of architectures and deployment models that exist throughout the infrastructure, both virtualized and containerized based deployment models. And then, of course, the MANO, the orchestration and automation technologies required to orchestrate that infrastructure that Rajesh talked about before. Another key trend is the focus on collaborations between the telecom operators and cloud service providers as a means to deploy cloud-based infrastructure. So when you look at the demands that are coming from the telecom operators themselves in terms of their own, IT and CT transformation, but also their desire to service the needs, particularly of their enterprise customers. You see announcements coming from around the globe of key operators partnering with key cloud service providers, a few that are included on this particular page right here, AT&T and Azure, Verizon and AWS, China Unicom and Tencent, but the list goes on and on. There are dozens, of course, that have been publicly announced. This accelerates the need for cloud native based approaches to infrastructure and specifically to networking to deliver on those transformation needs in both IT and CT, as well as even the OT needs of a lot of those enterprise customers. And then, of course, you have what's very real and relevant to our world in 2020 with respect to the changing demands on changes in use cases and then changing demands on the infrastructure as a result of what we've seen with COVID and this pandemic. Initially, over the course of the past couple months, as the pandemic has broken out, we have seen changes in demand on the infrastructure, a significant upswing in residential voice, a significant upswing in video streaming to residential areas, and that's not, we believe only going to be a temporary change. We have to look at our post-COVID world and understand what that means about use cases that may not have been as prevalent, perhaps had this not occurred in our world, but we do expect to see, for example, an acceleration of areas like telehealth, of remote education and remote work. And really, when you take all of this together, what it means is that, a similarity between the NFV revolution and now what we see with cloud native is that need for agile and flexible and scalable infrastructure is even larger than the demand that we had seen previously. And so the more that we can drive that agility into the way that we build network solutions and deploy and operate network solutions, the better off we'll be able to satisfy those needs.
So let's discuss the key business imperatives of cloud native now. Rajesh, what are the benefits of a cloud native approach, and what are some of the key tenets that the industry needs in order to drive the next phase of network transformation to achieve cloud scale and agility?
Yeah, thank you, Guy. That's actually a really good question. First and foremost, actually, what we're trying to do with cloud native is really drive this next phase of network transformation that allows us to make the network more programmable, scalable, and intelligent. And as you think about it, the value vectors that we're trying to drive with this cloud native approach help us deliver the new services with agility. And this is really to achieve the goal of helping operators generate new revenue streams and increase their average revenue per user. Second, it's actually about operational agility. So how do we actually drive the new paradigm from a product lifecycle perspective, really bringing some of the best known methods from the cloud service provider world and drive this continuous integration, continuous development paradigm. Third, it's actually about resource efficiency and how do we actually make the best use of the infrastructure and the resources. So when you think about a new service, how do we actually place the applications and workloads such that we can deliver the best quality of service for the new and innovative applications that are coming up? And then last but not the least, it's actually really all about the improved user experience. So I think we all know how much video is being circulated in the network today. There's actually an increased deployment of analytics and AI-based applications, and all this is towards actually delivering a better user experience overall. Now, when you think about like the principles that we are applying to these value vectors, it's really a combination of, of course, we want actually more automation from an end-to-end perspective. We want actually a cloud-like scalability and agility. So we want to actually make sure that we can scale the performance on an on-demand basis with the cloud scale. We want to actually drive more disaggregation of hardware and software so we can actually innovate with software faster. And then resiliency is extremely important. When you think about network services, we've actually always thought of this as the five nines availability, and resiliency and fault tolerance and recovery from fault scenarios, I think, becomes very important. Now, bringing it all together, what does this actually mean from a business imperative standpoint? It's really these three things. First, it's actually how do we make applications composable, taking a fundamentally different approach with microservices and containers in a cloud native deployment model. So we can really bring all the cloud benefits to the network applications and network services. Second, it's actually about disaggregated infrastructure, and how do we actually drive for more platform abstraction, hardware abstraction, and drive a rapid innovation. So think of compute, network, and storage as resources, really programmable resources with the industry standard hardware and software that really fuels a much more agile and faster innovation cycle. And then last but not the least, it's about automated lifecycle management. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's really how do we drive end-to-end automation so we are not rolling a truck like every time we want to install a new service. It's very expensive, as we know, and it actually is very time consuming. And in the new cloud era, we really want to be able to create, deploy, and manage services in an automated fashion. So these are the things that we are looking to drive as the next phase of innovation in this cloud native transformation that we're going to be driving over the next few years.
Right. Final question to both of you. Let's look ahead 1 or 2 years into the future. Jeni, I'll start with you. What do you visualize for cloud native when, say, we look to mid 2021? And also, what are some of the key industry partnerships that's going to drive this acceleration of cloud native transformation?
I think what's most exciting, Guy, about cloud native infrastructure is that it really enables that convergence of communications and computing that we really have foreseen with the rollout of 5G. And it creates an opportunity for us to create the underlying infrastructure that will form the foundation also for the edge computing revolution. Very similar to the way that the mobile and smartphone revolution has really driven a lot of the innovation over the course of the past 10 years. As we look forward to the next decade, edge computing is really going to form the foundation for a lot of that innovation, both with use cases we can identify today, as well as a number of use cases that have yet to be invented. So as we look over the course of the next 1 to 2 years, we're really focused on partnering across the industry to ensure that the underpinnings of the key technology developments, as well as broader partnership across the ecosystem, that those foundations are being put in place to deliver on that diverse set of infrastructure needs and use case needs. And that's why I'm so excited to bring a couple of our partners' voices into this virtual summit. We have partners with us from both AT&T and Dell that we'll be hearing from over the course of our summit. And I'm very excited to hear what they have to say and then also participate with them on a panel a little bit later on.
Thank you. And Rajesh, look ahead to mid-2021. What do you see for cloud native and the importance of partnerships for Intel?
Thank you, Guy. This has been a really good discussion. I'm really excited with what the cloud native transformation delivers for our industry. Of course, faster innovation over the next couple of years. But it's also very important that we actually collaborate with the industry and our partners to drive this next phase of innovation. And so to that end, we're going to be actually working very closely with the community and the ecosystem to really optimize the network applications and services with a cloud native paradigm. So this would actually mean a lot of collaboration in building applications in the form of microservices with the container technology. And this is going to actually require that we work closely with the broader ecosystem. So I'm looking forward to our partnerships and looking forward to driving this next phase of innovation, the cloud native transformation.
Look forward to it. It's going to be a very exciting year for sure. But for now, Rajesh and Jeni, thank you both very much indeed. And don't forget, you can watch more interviews and discussions on Cloud Native NFV right here as part of the Intel Network and Edge V Summit series. But for now, thank you for watching and goodbye.